Hello and welcome to Perspectives, where we take a deep dive into the issues of the day as usual, and where we take a look at people's opinion on such issues. I am Osime. The tragic death of Somtochukwu Christel Maduagwu, a 29-year-old Arise TV broadcaster and lawyer, has left the nation reeling from shock. But you know, the sad thing is that hers is not an isolated story. Other young women, like Dr. Arimbechukwu Ajumogobia, was killed by her domestic staff. Onise Ishmael was stabbed multiple times and killed as she stepped out of her house. Oluwabamiche Anyonwole's body was found mutilated a few days after she boarded a BRT bus. And Christian Idowu was killed by suspected ritualists. There are many more of such incidents, and they expose a country where people, especially women living alone, carry the silent burden of fear. The fear of coming home, of hailing a ride, of even answering a knock at the door. In his Independence Day speech, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu urged Nigerians in the diaspora to return home and help rebuild the nation. But this gruesome death forces a harder question. How can they return with confidence if safety, jobs, and opportunity remain uncertain? If Nigeria is truly rising, then justice and safety must rise with it, because a nation is not truly home until its people are safe enough to dream without limits. We're heading for a short break, but stay with us because I'll be right back to introduce my guests on the show. Akinsanya, Auwal Musa Rafsanjani, and Kashi Offiah. Perspectives return in just a moment. I have my guest here with me, Femi Akinsanya, who is an anchor and also
international correspondent.
International correspondent and what have you. Do you understand? And then I also have Kachi in the house, but Kachi Offiah in the house, but she's not here yet. And then we have our guest, Rafsanjani in Abuja, that will tell us about security affairs. So let's start with you, Femi. You know, you read the president's speech and you saw how he tried to sound encouraging, asking people in diaspora to come back. But first and foremost, before I even ask you about your own experience, tell me, you said a story, something similar that happened to Sommie, also happened to a friend of yours. Tell us about that.
So a few years ago, I'm saying a few, it's creeping up to a decade now, but some years ago, a friend of mine, her name was Doyin Fagbemo. She was also British Nigerian. We actually knew each other from universities. We went to universities in London. I went to King's College. She went to Queen Mary. And we knew each other from the African Caribbean societies of our universities because we were both very active members. And we were both very excited to graduate, spend a little time in the job market of London, and then eventually come back home because we both had huge dreams to come back to Nigeria and really make it big here. So Doyin came before I did, and she wanted to really penetrate the events market, which was obviously at that time and even today a huge portion, a huge market. So when we see the likes of Mrs. Funke Bokno, absolutely, absolutely,
it's a very buoyant market.
So Doyin wanted to come in and take advantage of the opportunities when it came to event management, and that's what she did for the time she was there. Unfortunately, she was involved in a terrible car crash here in Lagos. It was awful, and she didn't die immediately, but she was in a severely critical condition. Her father was a diplomat at that time, and arranged for her body to be airlifted back to London, where she eventually died. It was devastating because, as the narrative was,
back for by that time?
It hadn't even been up to a year, I don't believe. It wasn't long. And it was, as I said, devastating because had she stayed in London, that might not have been her story. And it's unfortunate that we have such a huge diaspora. And the tie is still so strong. Even if you are not born in Nigeria, even if you weren't raised here, the tie is so strong that you have so many people like myself wanting to come back and see what's around. So for Doyin to meet her untimely passing, it was heartbreaking then, and then this week to see that something again has happened to another returnee, it just reinforces the fact that yes, there are boundless opportunities in our wonderful country, but life is very fragile here. It feels far more fragile anywhere else.
Yes, now that you mentioned that, so since you returned, when you speak with friends still abroad, you know, what are the fears or hopes that they share about coming to Nigeria?
Firstly, security. You know, my older brother and sister, they were actually born in Nigeria, and they both thought I was mad when I said I was moving back because, as I said, I wasn't born here. I didn't go to to school here. Apart from going to our hometown, which is Ijebu-Ode, every year for Salah, I didn't really have any experience.
Any strong ties.
So moving here in 2020, it was really throwing myself into the deep end. I didn't know anything about where Lagos was, what the different areas are. So over the course of these 5 years, I've just had to, you know, start from scratch essentially. And for me, glory to God, it's been a great experience. And it's something that I would implore many other people to do. However, I always say, if you're coming to Nigeria, if you're coming to Lagos, try and take it in doses, because while it hasn't discouraged me from coming back. Literally, we found out about Sommie while I was in London, and I knew I was still going to come back. It never for a second did I not think that I'm going to give up on my country. But for many returnees, many people who would like to return, security first and foremost is their primary concern. And hearing what happened to Sommie, that armed robbers broke into her home, startled her to the fact that she felt she would be safer jumping from a 3-story building, highlights the fact that we have a huge security problem.
Yeah.
So while we can appreciate what President Tinubu said in encouraging returnees in the diaspora to come home, there has to be something to address this pressing need.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I think I heard somewhere or saw one of these videos where apparently the armed robbers were even begging her not to jump, or telling her not to jump. But it makes it more harrowing, because the thoughts of them coming into your space that you might be raped or might be killed was so strong that even when she was being asked to stay, to not jump, she still jumped. Yeah. So even that fear, it must have been so engulfing for her.
You know, exactly that. And I don't even know how comfortable I am with that narrative.
I'm telling you.
That these armed robbers told her not to jump. What were you doing there? She shouldn't jump. What were you doing inside of there in the first place?
And then the fear of being raped.
Yeah,
or the fear of
legitimate, because we saw reports that she was coming out of the shower, whatever the case may be, when she found out that there were intruders in her home. So again, just to bring like the point that you had, she felt safer jumping.
Yes.
Than staying.
And it was on the 3rd floor, apparently. Yes. So you can imagine, for one to take that risk, how the amount of fear that she must have been going through.
Outnumbered. They were armed. I mean,
of course, we've all heard horror stories about rape and what have you, and that is enough to make any woman be scared for her life. But let's get to Abuja. I want to talk to. Can we have Abuja, please? Can you hear me? Okay, so good to see you. Now, as a security, we want to ask, what does Sommie's killing reveal about the real state of policing and safety in Nigeria today? What does her death say about safety?
Thank you. Good. Good morning. Nigerians and other people watching, outside Nigeria. This is a very sad and sorrow situation that we have found ourselves, and that a friend, a colleague that is doing everything possible to create, enlightenment and help the nation, in her own, capacity. And she met with this kind of very unfortunate incident. The situation we find ourselves in Nigeria, and even here in Abuja, in particular where the seat of government is really very alarming and worrisome. The widespread of incident of armed robbery, kidnapping, and other criminalities going on in Nigeria, and in particular here in Abuja, is very scandalous, and it clearly shows the huge gap in terms of safety and security of Nigerians. If in the federal capital, where the president, all the ministers, and many people, including National Assembly, are in Abuja, a very small place for that matter, that there cannot be security to save and safeguard the people and their property, including our diplomatic community. This is not a good situation. So as long as the situation continues, it will even scare many people from coming to Nigeria, because the armed robberies, and the kidnapping incidences in Abuja and Nigeria generally is a reflection on how retrogressive we have become in this country, and it clearly shows the infrastructure deficit, because in some countries you will see they have very big satellite that they monitor the activities across the city. We have spent a lot of billions of naira in the name of putting CCTV cameras. Today, those CCTV cameras disappeared, their contractors have appeared with the money. Again, you have seen also all sorts of roadblocks of the police. You wonder what these roadblocks are. If you move around, not only now in Abuja, everywhere in the country, you will be mounting from 1 minute to 1 minute, you will be seeing roadblocks of the police and other security agencies. If we are doing that work with all sorts of commitment and selfishness, I am telling you, we will be able to at least minimize the instances of this. Now, the widespread, poverty and the use of political trickery by politicians, which is, helping with impunity, is also creating this condition. Again, there are young people who have decided to be taking drugs, or some politicians are providing them with drugs so that they can get high. And even the widespread of small arm proliferation in Nigeria, it is also what is giving credence to all this and that is happening. So there's a serious institutional and policy deficiency that we need to fix in order to help save the country and save the people. We cannot afford to be allowing a widespread of small arms. In fact, they are no longer small arms now, because they are heavy arms that really you wonder how comes, with all the roadblocks that you have, with all the custom in our borders, how comes these people are having access to this? So if it is not the case of armed robbery, it is the case of banditry. If it is not the case of banditry, it is the case of terrorism, or Boko Haram, or insurgency. Look, we cannot guarantee the safety of this country if we continue with politicizing and involving corruption in the security sector. Because if you take away the corruption in the security sector, if you take away politicization of the security sector, I am telling you, you would have been able to improve the security and safety in this country. We cannot be budgeting billions every year in terms of security, including what they call security board by the state governors, and yet Nigerians are at risk all the times. You can hardly go to any place now that people are not scared. Once it is evening, people are no longer able to move freely. They are scared. This is not what we used to see or we used to know Nigeria. So the intensity of these robbery cases and kidnapping and criminality that some people have decided to be promoting because of either political interest or because of money making, we cannot allow this to continue if we really want to save the people and we want to guarantee the safety of even our diplomatic community and other investors that are coming to Nigeria to invest. If the country is not safe, no investor is going to come. So I am calling on the President Tinubu to intensify effort to reform the security sector in this country. The security sector is too politicized, is too, to some extent too corrupt, because even the Auditor General report clearly shows that arms and ammunition that are supposed to come to the police, they have not been delivered, and there's no money. In fact, even the armed procurement that Nigerian army is supposed to get ended up in some people's pocket. The allowances of the security that are supposed to be fighting even insurgency and Boko Haram ended up in some people's pocket. Now, in the case of Kano, for example, the Kano is very peaceful, but politicians are creating artificial insecurity in Kano, creating what they call two emir, federal emir and state emir that the constitution allows the governor to put. So If we did not take away politics, and we did not take away corruption, and we did not take away inefficiency and injustice, as well as dealing with the poverty and youth unemployment in this country, it would be difficult to tackle the menace of robbery, incidences and banditry in this country, which the kidnappers have their field day doing whatever they like. Just some few weeks ago, they came out openly to be talking all sorts of things, and yet all the security agencies, they could not even figure out where they are. And yet if you say anything against injustice in this country, some people, especially at the state level, some people will go and arrest young people for saying their minds about the bad governance and corruption.
Thank you. It's good that you said all of this, because I remember that the police claimed that they got there 20 minutes after the call was made. In terms of rapid response, what do you think of that?
I think the issue is that we need to improve in our communication, and we need to strengthen community policing in this country. As long as we do not have neighborhood watches, and we do not have community policing, and we do not have quick justice, people will continue to do whatever they want to do. And we need to improve the capacity and the infrastructure of the police as well as DSS, because if we cannot get timely response, and it is always when the whole damage is done that you need to you hear that. Look, even in Kenya, you see they mount cameras. There is a central room where they view what is going on in the city. Nigeria has more resources than Kenya. Nigeria probably spent a lot of money in this so-called fraudulent CCTV cameras that nobody is seeing them in Abuja. Light is not working. And you can imagine, even the police on the checkpoint, they will choose to go to where there's no light, where nobody will see them, or you will see them half dressed, or sometimes there's no any dress, carrying arms. So Nigerians are confused whether they are dealing with armed robbers or they are dealing with the real police. I think there's need for the IG to insist that every police officer must wear uniform for proper identification, because some of the armed robbers, they also dress in that manner and disguising that they are police, and meanwhile they are not police. So Nigerians are scared of even trusting and believing. And once you begin to fear or to not have trust on your security, then there's a big problem. So I am saying, I'm calling on the President Tinubu to take necessary steps to ensure that we reform security sector. Let our security sector be efficient and effective, and ensure that we timely deliver justice and stop impunity, and allow politicians to be using young people for drugging them, giving them drug and arms to come and be doing so-called political campaign.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me get back to Femi in the house. Now, we've heard what Mr. Rafsanjani has said, and it doesn't sound very encouraging. So since you've come back now, personally, since you've come back, have there been moments that have made you question your safety here? And also, can you tell us a bit about Sommie? Behind her death, what was she like?
Okay, so let's start with speaking about Sommie, because on its face, she was clearly a beautiful and very driven young lady. Sommie and I worked indirectly together on a report Leila Johnson-Salami and I put together at the beginning of this year. It's called Bittersweet. So we're looking at the... Can you imagine?
What an irony.
Bittersweet was a report that we worked on that looked at the poison of sugar. Initially, we were looking at how some companies were putting sugar in baby food products available in Africa, developing countries, but they didn't have those such sugars in the same products available in Europe.
Okay.
So it was an investigation into that. But it widened to look at the addiction of sugar and how parents in developing countries should be aware that sugar is very addictive for children and shouldn't be something that they should be pumping into their children as we see here today. So Leila and I were based in Lagos. Unfortunately for us, Somchuchuku joined the team for this production via Abuja. So she took and handled all of our Abuja-based interviews. We had interviews at the United Nations, so we did a great job of putting that together. So in terms of professionally, that was the only experience.
Very driven.
Very, very driven. And in the aftermath of her death, I received so many different phone calls from international journalists who knew exactly who Sommie was and were impressed by her drive, because she is someone, and I wanted to quote one of the journalists who called me, her name is Juliana Olayinka, and she said that she knew that Sommie wanted to make it. And it just underscores the pain and the loss that we all feel as her colleagues, because as a family, when you experience something like this, it's already devastating. But I think that on a personal level, we feel the loss. But I think professionally, journalism has also lost out too.
Yes. Remember her tweet where she said, "May Nigeria never happen to me or any of my loved ones."
And look what
even
has
that
happened.
Nigeria happens to you phrase now that is being used so loosely, it's even painful to hear.
It is.
Because when Nigeria does happen to you, it means everything that can go wrong is going to go wrong.
Correct.
Do you understand? So it's not even a very encouraging phrase or slang to use on a day-to-day basis. But unfortunately, it finds its way into our daily conversations because of obstacles, because of challenges, because of generally frustrations that you face. Which is why I'm asking you that, were there moments where you actually questioned whether it was a wise idea to return?
You know, sometimes, I mean, so like if we look at it professionally, we had the issue with the NSAS situation where we had a clash with police. So that was one of the first times I felt unsafe at work, unsafe as a journalist. But I think that's part and parcel of just like everyday life here. So professionally, yes. On a personal level, yes and no. So losing a friend to a car crash, I'm always very wary with just attitudes with driving. I think we make a joke about how driving in Lagos is almost like an extreme sport because people drive quite recklessly here. So I think to some extent, yes. So I do feel fear, but it has not, and I pray will not, overshadow the hope I have for this country. Because if I truly felt that I should be in fear of my life here, I wouldn't be here. But it doesn't take away from the legitimacy of a comment like, may Nigeria never happen, because it does happen. And unfortunately, we have to put ourselves in a position where, yes, we can call for our leaders, our president, our governors to do more as it pertains to security, absolutely. But I think as individuals, there's a responsibility we have. There's a social contract we all participate in to behave well, to drive safely, to take care of other people, not to steal, not to harm.
It's not the government, it's also the mentality of the people.
It's us as well. We bear a huge responsibility.
And you just think is a normal thing. In fact, sometimes when you go abroad and you see the necessary steps you need to take to attain certain things, you almost get impatient because in your mind you're like, if I was in Nigeria, I could either do this or do that and find a shortcut here and there. Do you understand? So it's that shortcut mentality, that entitlement mentality that we also need to change within our people for us to be able to move forward. We can't just put the whole blame on the doorstep of the government, of the leaders themselves.
No, we bear responsibility.
Yes, we also bear responsibility. But we're going on a short break now, and grab a cup of tea, as I always say, and see you right back soon on Perspectives. Welcome back to Perspectives. Kachi, I should find you. You were late.
Yes, you should.
I should find you.
I love you so much, Auntie Ruth. I apologize.
I love you too, my darling. So now, with Sommie's death, it was people's age brackets. How has her death affected you as a person in terms of safety?
Honestly, I would say that Sommie is every single one of us because I'm just within the same age bracket as Sommie. I live alone as well. So it's something that just makes you realize that truly it can happen to anybody at all. Sommie was someone who wasn't a scared person. She was very independent, very, very independent, very driven, and just did what she needed to do, So her living alone was primarily because she understood that she had a duty to not just herself, but to the people around her, and she had responsibilities that she had to meet up with. So looking at what happened to her, I mean, I still have so many questions because until we really understand what happened, how it happened, and how it was responded to, I don't think I'm ever going to feel completely safe.
Yes.
I don't think I'm ever going to, I'm not going to lie, I was, okay, do I need to, get like iron bars or locks change, because really it could happen to anyone.
It could happen to anyone.
It could happen to anyone. So for me, I would have never in my life thought that it will happen to Sommie, because Sommie is literally the epitome of she is so perfect. She does everything when she's organized. That's a better word. She's so organized. She does things how they need to be done. So she's not even a proud person to say, she has things and she wants to show it off. No, she's not that type of. So it's like, what were they even looking for in her apartment? What did they probably want to pick up? Was it her phone or her iPad? Again, she's also not someone to hold onto things to material things. So I don't think it would have been like, oh, I don't want you to take my phone. I don't want you to take my iPad. So if anything, it makes me also
A totally senseless death, really.
completely senseless. It's very humbling.
But it just shows you what the power of fear can do to you as a human being.
Yes, yes. Fear for many things, you know, fear for yourself, fear for, you know, it's like understanding that you don't know what's going to come out of this, but you want to at least try to do something about it. And that was Sommie.
Yes.
Sommie was the type of person that she's going to do something about it. She's going to say something about it. And I think what happened to her is proof of that. She was trying to do something for herself. She was trying to save herself, if anything. How that played out may not have been what she had wanted, you know, but at least she was not just, you know,
And it's even funny that you mentioned that, because one would have thought that she got a place in that place. She got that apartment because there were other tenants. In other words, it was 16 flats, I believe.
Yes.
So you would think that if you're living in such an environment that you're relatively safe. And I also hear that the area where it happened was supposed to be relatively also safe in Abuja. So what does this just, it's just so befuddling. Because what does that now say about the security that was provided for the apartments? So do you now think in moving forward, before any single woman gets a place, she has to ensure that the security apparatus is very strong? Because who would have thought that this would happen in a place like this?
It is tough, because I think that just as human beings, you just want to live, isn't it? And you just feel as though when you put too much investment into security, it's almost like you're inviting a problem in. But at the same time, I think that there are some lessons that can be learned. I don't ever want to put any molecule or blame on Sommie at all, because she didn't contribute to her death at all, right? But in terms of physical security, perhaps as we are looking into the next place we want to live in, or the current place we live in, do we have security doors? Are we keeping our doors locked? Not saying that, again, this has nothing to do with what has happened to Sommie, but just as individual people, Kachi mentioned living alone. How secure are our spaces? Do we invest in personal security? Do we actually have a system with estates? I don't know. I know that this was in Kantampe, and that's supposed to be an affluent part of Abuja, a safer part of Abuja. Don't know what the apparatus is, whether or not if it was within an estate that has security. But I do think, just as individuals, me myself, just be thinking, okay, well, perhaps it is time to invest in security doors and making sure that all the doors are locked when you go into your sleep. Make sure your bedroom doors are locked. And that being said, but as we were talking about earlier, I do think that this is also a question of personal responsibility.
But these are responsibility.
Yes, absolutely, government too. But even if we have an apt government, or a government that was quote unquote perfect, they're still going to be serving the people. So as people, we still have to make sure that we are not putting ourselves in a position where we are breaking into other people's homes and causing such a fright that a woman felt like jumping from the 3rd story would be safer than combating yourself.
It's just unbelievable. Let me get back to Auwal in the house. Auwal, are you there? Okay.
Yes.
You just had us talk about security. Now, what are the parameters would you advise in moving forward that people, young women, should look for when they want to move to a place? And besides, you believe in the vigilante group. How well do you think it is? How well do you think they should perform before anybody can be comfortable enough to move to that area?
I don't think it is about the question of the young woman, you know, or individual. I think it's a general crisis we have found ourselves. A lot of armed robbers, a lot of families suffer in the hands of wicked armed robbers and wicked, you know, maybe small thieves coming to their houses to steal them, and in the process even put knife on them and do all sorts of things. So it's not about issue of single girl. Even people with the huge family,
that's why I said,
been suffering from.
Even people, apart from being the single girl, do you understand? So who should you now trust? Is it the law enforcement you should trust, or the vigilantes? Who do you put your trust in?
The issue is that it is the failure, listen, it is the failure of the law enforcement, or the lack of capacity of the law enforcement agencies to be able to deal with this situation. That is why the emergence of vigilante group came in. It is a vote of no confidence, if you like, to have this kind of people, because these are not people that are properly trained. These are people that are not properly recruited. They are just self-help group that usually you have, and you cannot compare it with a well-trained, professional police or other security, agents. So it's a vote of no confidence, that you even have such kind of people coming in the name of, doing security, taking over the work that security, or police are supposed to do. Now, why should we be having all these roadblocks? Every street you go, you see roadblock collecting money. Every Nigerian knows this. And they either beg you to give them money, or they intimidate you to give you money, or in fact, they even put drugs, because this is what Nigerians are complaining. But we have always told Nigerians that they should remain calm whenever they meet them. And if they see anything, they should take note, because there's what we call police response unit. If you see any misconduct or misbehavior from any officer, record him, report him or her properly. As long as you did not do anything that is wrong, So that we can reduce the kind of people that we have in the name of our people. And secondly, we need to begin to sanitize the recruitment of our security officials in this country. You cannot be recruiting people that Nigerians have a belief that they are either friends or associates of people that are perpetuating this criminality. That is why some people allege that if they caught these people and hand them over to some policemen, the next thing, these guys will be released. And these instances have been happening, in many instances. And sometimes police, they also complain when they arrest armed robbers and they take them to court, then the judges will release them. So there's a need to look at all this, complaint from the public, complaint from the police, complaint from even the judiciary themselves, so that we can actually have safety. Look, Nigeria we cannot allow this kind of lackadaisical attitude to destroy this country. This country, is a great country, and we cannot allow charlatans to come and draw us back. At the family level, people need to invest in morals in their families, in their children. You cannot allow your kids that's supposed to be in school to be involved in cultism, drug, and other political thuggery. Look, parents need to stand up to do something to also contribute towards reducing this, menace of criminals and criminality that is going on. Again, government need to ensure that the young people are, gainfully employed. We cannot be wasting this productive, energetic young people that we have. In some country, this population will be a blessing. But in the case of Nigeria, our population is liability. Why should we be having people all over roaming around on the street, either begging or doing yahoo or doing criminality? We're supposed to engage their energy, their talent to be for productive thing, so that in the area of science and technology and other development that we have that we need in this country, we utilize their energy and resources and their talent. Why are we wasting these valuable resources that we have? So I think it is important that government put in place measures. And why we are talking about government is because government is responsible. It is the responsibility of government to ensure the security and safety of Nigerians, not the belligerent, what do you call them? Belligerent, I can't even remember their name, the self-help groups, not those ones. Those ones, they can only complement. Yeah. You need to improve in our civil lines. You need to improve in the intelligence that we have. You have a lot of DSS. You have a lot of people that are not wearing uniform. Why is it that it is just about individual regime protection instead of protecting the public? Security are focusing only in protecting people in power.
Let me ask
that is where we are making it wrong.
Let me ask you another question. Let me ask you another question that is very almost personal. If a young lady comes to you now and says she wants to move to a place, what are the security points that you would advise her to look out for? Considering what happened to Sommie and what has happened to other people.
Yeah.
What would you ask her to look out for when in getting an apartment?
So definitely, I will not ask her to go to an area that will have challenge in terms of communication, or in terms of access, or in terms of visibility, or in terms of actually even lightning. I will encourage her and any other person to go to where there is easy access, easy communication, and where there are people there. Because usually where you have, people, at least before any damage is done.
That's where Sommie lives.
Yes. I'm saying,
so what are the extra measures?
I'm trying to say other things,
Okay.
So, so part of the extra measures that we will have to take, is of course, is to really be conscious and not to display. Even if we, reach, we should be mindful of the fact that we cannot be displaying wealth, in the mix of plenty people who are suffering from what to eat, or who are actually even living near where drugs are taken. We need to do those kind of safety check, on ourselves. We need to always be careful and also ensure that in the estate you are staying, or in the area that you are staying, there's a discussion, there's a meeting, there's a regular meeting to always meet and discuss about safety. One of the problems we have, which I don't even see it, in the white people lifestyle, in Nigeria now, people will live in an estate for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. They don't even know their neighbors. This is wrong. That's not what we see even in the Oyibo land. So we have turned ourselves into something else. Some people even die inside their rooms. Nobody knows, because they have no business whatsoever with anybody. Their neighbors, they don't even know their names. They don't know what they are doing. Look, you need to make sure that we do that. Again, landlord, please should ensure that whoever that is also coming, there's a background check on the person that is coming to the house, because you do not want to also affect the other tenant that maybe perhaps they are, they don't want to, live with people who have criminal, tendency or record. It is important we do all those background check. When you are going to go and stay in a place, you must make those kind of check to make sure that the area is safe. It has no incident of all this robbery. In this Abuja, there are some areas that even if you give somebody millions, will not go there, because when you know you are in trouble.
Thank you. Let me get back to my babies in the house. We've listened to what Auwal had to say about security and what have you. Now, after the headlines fade, what kind of support do you think the families of these loved ones require from the government and community? What kind of support do you think would make their pain less?
I think grief is one of those ones that there's almost nothing that can really address the pain, because you can't bring the person back.
Yes, you can't.
And
you can take steps
absolutely
to make the loss.
And though I don't want to speak
painful
for the family, I think that measures that can be taken to make sure that this loss is not in vain is to really invest firstly into security. So firstly, there has to be a level of sensitization so that someone knows in an emergency, this is a number you can call. It is free of charge. There is guarantee that someone will be on the other end to render you assistance. And it is our pledge to get to you in a timely manner. I think firstly, there has to be some form of sensitization of the public, because speaking from somebody coming from another country into her home country, when I first came here, I didn't actually know what emergency numbers were. If I found myself in a situation, and I give this quick example, being in Lagos, we were driving past a scene of a car crash. Someone had been knocked off of a motorcycle and they were bleeding profusely. And I had to call my flatmate at the time to find out who to call in an emergency. And when I did finally get through to the emergency of Lagos State, the number I called, the lady asked me all of the questions that I could give her, where I was. It took a long time actually for her to answer.
How fast did she answer when you called?
I called a few times, if memory serves me correctly.
So you had to call a few times?
Yes,
okay.
But she did. There was eventually an answer, and I told her the location, and it was quite frustrating because it seemed as though, I don't know if it was just a difference in accents or whatever, but I was trying to explain to her it was Falamo Bridge, the lane going from Falamo towards Osborne Street, that part of Ikoyi.
She couldn't understand that?
She couldn't understand that, and so what stays with me, the reason why I even want to mention that is that she asked me, okay, can we call you back to give? The question was almost as if I had incriminated myself by calling them, and would I be willing to be contacted again? And I said, sure.
Well,
I mean, I'm just exactly. And I think that also feeds into why people may not even know what to do in an emergency. Okay, so if I call the police, are they going to think that it's because of me?
I've heard of where people have actually called the police, and even the caller was arrested.
Yeah.
As if they had anything to do with the accident.
And what does that
itself.
do? That teaches people not to participate in community action, which goes to the guest's point. Do you know your neighbor?
Yeah.
Do you have their contacts? So that in a situation where we find ourselves in an emergency, will you be able to call your neighbor and say, lock your doors,
Would you even
this is
call?
happening? Would
That's
you
the
even
first
call?
big
Do we
question,
even
would you
have
call?
that sense of
Because there are
community
many a time
here?
where you drive past and you see somebody bleeding on the roads, maybe on the bridge or something, Third Mainland Bridge. I've seen that happen before. I mean, I looked back, but I must admit, I didn't call.
Yeah, I think at the same time, it's the peculiarity of this because, like I said, this has been such a shocker because of the nature of the incident in itself.
And also because of who the person
because
is.
of who the person, you know,
Yes.
exactly, because of who Sommie is.
Yes.
Now, in as much as, you know, it will be great to definitely know your neighbors. Sommie was such a friendly person. I met Sommie at the time when she was, you know, she was actively going for pageants, and we became friends almost immediately. So she wasn't someone that was, you know, hard to be friends with. So I strongly know that, you know, Sommie was not weird with her neighbors or anything like that. So let's say, okay, you know what, you tick that box correctly. Then you have the calling the emergency numbers. Now, if I know what happened, and to the best of my knowledge, this was a situation where panic came before any kind of logical reasoning. Now, I've lived in Abuja before, and the way Abuja works is the way you could be driving your car and you mistakenly brush a keke driver. Before you even look back to say, oh, you have people surrounding you with machetes. Yes.
Are you, with machetes?
Yes, they will surround you and they're chanting at you.
Are you serious?
Yes. You have people who move their cattle, and if you step on a cattle's leg,
Yeah, but did they move the cattle to the point
they
where
move the cattle
they
in the
obstruct?
middle of the road. You will stop your car and let the cattle pass through. Because if you do not and anything goes wrong with that cattle, and again, before you can even say, oh, let me call the emergency line, you will be dead.
Wow.
Or you will be severely injured. So the issue is this. Abuja is beautiful infrastructure, great roads, but in the middle of those roads, I've been driving and there was a huge hole. I don't know what those things are called. They're not potholes, but they're like drainage passageways where they're covered with this
That should be covered anyway, naturally.
People have removed those things, so you're driving and your car donks inside.
It's called manholes, apparently.
Manholes, thank you.
Yes.
You'll have an accident instantly.
No, but what did they remove the tip for?
They remove it, they sell it. It's a constant practice in Abuja. You at a certain time, there's a place called Central Business District. If
But
you're
isn't there a way they can make it in such a way where almost cemented?
and that
make
is,
it
these are
difficult
the
to lift?
issues. These are the issues. Central Business District, if you're driving past Central Business District at 9 p.m. and you're on the phone, your phone will get snatched and you could get slapped as well.
If you're driving...
If you're driving through Central Business
Yes.
District...
But how will your phone get snatched? Your window is
Say,
up.
for instance, but not everybody's window is up.
Okay, that's
Someone
true.
could be in a taxi. I've
That's
been
true.
in the staff bus and my phone was snatched from my hand.
Are you serious?
In a staff bus, because of course we work late sometimes.
Yes, of course.
You know, and my phone was snatched. So the thing with Abuja is Abuja can
So
be
you saying
safer.
it's so unsafe now?
You have to be very, very, very
Vigilant.
Very vigilant. And you can't even be vigilant enough because the system and the way the city is set up, there's so much allowance. There are things that should not happen at all. There are certain movements. To be very honest, those guys,
the armed robbers?
The armed robbers, they don't even need to be sophisticated robbers. They could just be, because there's so many settlements everywhere. These settlements have all sorts of people from all sorts of places. If I'm in a room with any one of those guys, I don't think I'm going to be calling. I will be panicking. I will just, because first of all, the way they look, they don't speak English. They're speaking and they're vicious.
So you can understand why she jumped.
Exactly. So, and guess what? These are people that you can even see on a normal day. You just, I beg, you drive and pass. Why are they on the streets? Why are kekes allowed to move the way they are? These people, when they close and they are doing their little trade at night, where do they go to right after? When a robbery happens, do you know that there are too many places for you to run to as a thief and you will not be found? Because there's bush. There's just open bush. There's nothing to say, they'll just say, he went that way and he's gone. So these people could have been anyone.
So like at this one night, we might not even hear the end story of it.
No, because it could have been anyone. It could have literally been the person that is selling chewing gum outside. You don't know. You could do, and there are too many of that in Abuja. But the thing is, how do we solve these issues? If, to be honest, the streets have cameras. If there are street lights, you can see what is happening. If we could even get a camera footage, we would know what happened to this. To
Thank you so very much, Offiah. Thank you so much, Adefemi Akinsanya. Thank you so much, Auwal Rafsanjani. I hope I pronounced it right. Thank you for being with us on Perspectives. I wish we had a longer time to discuss this, but unfortunately we don't. So I hope that the few bites that we have provided so far would help us in fighting this insecurity. Insecurity in Nigeria is not a distant headline. It is the daily reality of families, as you've heard, of friends, of dreams cut short. Behind every number is a face, a voice, a future like Sommie's. And if her life teaches us anything, is that her story and others like hers must be remembered not in silence, but in the urgency to build a safer tomorrow. And as I keep saying, remember that life is a learning curve. That's all we have time for today. You've been watching Perspectives here on Arise News with me, Osime. Until next week, when we hope to be here again, do stay safe and have a fruitful time.